thank you for inviting me here. And I've been here for almost 2 weeks now with Devisoft. And my history comes in automated test and measurement. I started with a degree in physics and math and computer science concentrations from the State University of New York. And I graduated back in 1985. So some of you graduated in the same year that I did, and many of you did not. So, but I spent 36 years in automated test and measurement. So just everything from automotive to electronics to civil to all different areas where we were collecting data, doing analysis on it, doing research, building test fixtures, and I made a whole career out of this. So I was working in Michigan with Ford and General Motors and Chrysler and Daimler and the whole bunch of automotive companies, and I was helping them make their systems work. So I did that in the early 90s. I worked for a company called Keithley Instruments. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Keithley Instruments. They were known for voltmeters and digital multimeters and very high precision current measurements back in the day. And then I came to work for National Instruments in the early 90s, and I spent my career, 30 years, at National Instruments. And toward the end of my career there, I wound up running the software marketing. So they made a product called LabVIEW, and I was the vice president over all the software marketing, their academic program, and their customer education. So through all of that, I learned a lot of things. And one of the things I learned quite a bit about was what I call a business process. And that's really what I want to share with you today. The things I learned about how opportunities flow through a business process and how you can best treat those. And so we will walk through that together. And this came from my time in 1995 when, no, actually it was in 2000. When I became the sales director for our Japan branch. And our Japan branch had about 120 people, I think, something like that. Tens of millions of dollars in that branch. And so I went there, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of that story. But I'd like to share with you some of the things I learned. And I know that some of you are startups, right? Many are startups, and we're doing things. And so I'll just share with you some of the basics that as startups I think you need to consider. And then as larger businesses, I think you also need to consider. These are things. And so I always ask myself this question when I get in front of people. I ask this question: what could I possibly tell you that would change your life? And if not your life, maybe your business. And if not your business, maybe your day. But what can I offer you and tell you that would be new, would be informative, would be helpful? And that's always going through my mind. So I'll try to do some of those things for you. So let's go ahead and start with maybe one of the first things that I discovered when I went to Japan and started doing business. And this was a word that kept coming back to me. How is your business doing? It's doing well. Great. How's your business doing? It's not so good. My sales are down. It's like, And then we'd start to say, why? And one of the words that I found in Slovenia, I hear a lot, is why. Do you share this word a lot? Why? Why is that the case? I hear it a lot. Critically important word. Sometimes the answer to that question is, I do not know. My business is doing great. Why? I do not know. Because I am awesome, right? You can say this. I feel awesome. Look at me. Yeah, is that the reason? I don't know, but I feel awesome. Well, sometimes it's just luck. You don't know. And if you don't know when it changes, then you don't necessarily know what to do. And if it's luck, if the wind is blowing right and you feel great and you're moving with the wind, but then if the wind changes and you don't know what to do, then you've had luck and then you've had bad luck. But it's not control, right? It's not in your control. So this is the idea of luck. And we're trying to take a little bit of the luck and change it into control. I know why I'm doing well. I have an understanding why. And that was a little bit of my journey in this area. So I'll give the context, and I'm going to talk about test and measurement a little bit, but it's your business. It can be any business. It could be any market. And this slide is just to basically say, look, you go into business, and one of the first things you do is say, I have a great idea. And then the second thing that happens is like, I have a great idea. Who cares? Who cares? It's so awesome. I love it. It's like, yeah, nobody cares. And that means you don't have a market. Maybe you don't have a market. And then you can be like Steve Jobs and you can say, yeah, but they're going to care. Okay, maybe they will. Then you need an energy to change the world. And some people do that. But sometimes there's just no market, right? And so you might not have a nice graph like this that says, hey, a lot of people out there have a lot of money to spend, and they're your market. But you look at this a little bit, and if you're looking for investment, you say, there's a lot of people out there. They have money. I can have a better idea, and I am awesome, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to try to get some of that money. And importantly, I'm going to try to help some of those people, right? Maybe more importantly, I'm going to try to help some of these people, and the money will come. But you usually start with some kind of graph that gives you a sense that there's enough of a market to support you, right? So that's important to do. And then you make an awesome product. I chose an awesome product to show you today, right? Just look at that. Would you look at the color? Look at the design. Look at the connectors, the electronics, the excellence. This, I can promise you, is an excellent product. And I know it because in the early 90s, I used to sell against something like this. And all the way to today, this has grown to become world standard excellence in test and measurement. Ask me because I know. I've been an executive in that market, right? And I know these products. And these are excellent. So the big job is, well, now we're awesome. Like, this is awesome. This is opportunity. How do we get awesome connected to opportunity? Like, how do you do that? And what we're going to talk about are just some of the steps that connect awesome to opportunity, right? And what I'm here to tell you is, it's not luck. There are things that you can do to go and take your awesome product and turn it into the opportunity in the market, right? So, I asked ChatGPT to draw a picture of me. This is what you get. I don't know if that's so good. I looked at it for a while and then I realized, yeah, but it wasn't expensive. So that's what you get when you ask ChatGPT. And my story, I thought that looked older than me, to be honest with you, but I'll take it. My story started when I decided, wow, it's time to go from Austin out into the world and experience doing business in another market, in Japan. So I became the international sales director of our Japan branch. And I went over there. And I said, hey, what do I do when I go? Because I've never done this before. And this is the best thing about when a company's small and when you're growing, when you're a startup. You get to do a lot of different things. Congratulations, Dave. You are now the international sales director of an international branch. I'm like, can I have that on a business card, please? And they gave it to me, and I was like, And I flew over the whole time thinking, I am awesome. And I said, what should I do when I get there? And they said, do a lot of demos. Just show a lot of product. I can demo the software. Yeah, I can do that. That's good. And they said, no, be yourself because you're a likable guy. And it's just be yourself. I'm like, yeah. I wonder if my likability translates into Japanese. Maybe I smile too much, and that's not good for business. I don't know, right? But okay, so be yourself. That's the second piece of advice I got. Hire the best. Hire the best. It's like, why would I do otherwise? Should I hire second best? And then let them do their job. So that was another piece of advice I got. Okay, I'll look for the best. Tell them when you're coming back. I don't know exactly why they said that. To scare them or give them hope? I don't know. And then they said the magic word, good luck. I'm like, oh, you think that's important? Do I need luck to pull this off? But that's what they said. Good luck, Dave. See you later. Sayonara, right? See you later. So away I went. I did a lot of demos. I demoed to a lot of people. I looked younger than that back then. I did a lot of demos, and I taught my people to do a lot of demos, and we did a ton of demos. We went everywhere. Demos, and it was great. I mean, people liked it, and we sold stuff, and that was good. And then we started looking at our numbers, and so a year goes by, and like, oh, how are we doing? Okay, we're doing all right. How's our numbers? And I got in front of them, and I'm like, oh, you know, our sales are kind of flat. How come? And one of the things I said, well, certainly not because we're not doing enough demos. That I know we're doing. So I started thinking. And there's an old saying, and you may have heard this, when the student is ready, the master arrives. Have you heard that? Right? Probably sounds better in Slovenian, right? When the student is ready, and I was ready, like I needed some answers here. And now luck showed up. And this is the one piece of luck. I somehow came across this book. Has anybody read this book? Right? Do you like this book? Man, I love this book. I loved it. I love this book. And I was asking, how do I get some control of my business? I'm doing the one thing they told me. I'm doing the one thing, like a lot, and it's not enough. And so I read this book, and this book is about manufacturing. You're going to make things, and they move through a process where you make it, and the machine checks it, and you have to deliver it, and all these pieces. And it wasn't going well. And in the book, they open up, the opening scene says, hey, we're not doing well. We're not moving things fast enough. And they said, we need to be, and then the word comes, more efficient. Efficiency, that's going to solve everything. Just be more efficient. Get rid of some of those people. Hire some people over here. Do them faster. Stock more parts, but be more efficient. And that was the answer. Like, I have no idea. Just be more efficient. And he's like, oh, it's like do more demos, you know. I mean, it's an important piece, but is it the whole story? Is this all I need to do? And I read this, and he walked through every step of this process. And it wasn't just about efficiency. It was about quality. It was about excellence. It was about some important words, which you're going to see in a second. But I read this, and I'm like, oh, I have a process. And we're not making shoes or TVs. We were processing prospective customers through a process, turning them into customers, and then making them successful. But it was a process nonetheless. And I really could begin to appreciate how things move through a process, and importantly, how you move things through a process, right? You actively help move things along. This was important. Okay, so I read that, and I started realizing there's some words. Cause and effect. You might have heard it. It's like, oh, if you do that, then this happens. If you do that, then this happens. It's like a domino. If you knock this one over, it'll knock that one over, it'll knock this one over. And I realized that there were chains of events where people could play roles. And this was a movie. Does anybody know what movie this is from? The Matrix, yes. The Matrix. You know what his name is? The Merovingian. Interesting name. I don't know where it comes from. But we're sitting in the movie theater, and for weeks I'd been walking around the office going, cause and effect. It's all about cause and effect. And for some reason, random but true, I go to a movie with two of my friends from the office. I don't know why. It's the only time I ever did that. And we're sitting in the movie theater, and this guy comes out and says, Neo, Morpheus, Trinity, you think you're here randomly? You think it's just luck that you showed up here today? No. You are here because I have set into motion a series of causal factors that created the events that have delivered you here today. And he said, it's cause and effect. And as soon as he said that, my friend sitting next to me looked at me like, and I'm like, oh. And the student was ready. I was ready to hear it. But oddly enough, that shows up on the big screen. I'm like, well, I'll take it. This is a message coming to me. I'll take it. So I begin to believe in this. And interesting things happen. So if you do this, then those things will happen. Like if you get a lot of rain, you get a rainbow. These are people down here, they're in a flood. It's like, well, that could happen too, right? Flowers will grow. That's good. But the kind of words that you hear, this is interesting. And in your business, you start saying, are we saying therefore enough? Oh, I got enough leads. Therefore, I had people to talk to, right? I sold enough product. Therefore, I was able to make people successful. I did enough advertising. Therefore, people know my name. They know who I am. So you start looking for therefore, and because of, and things like maybe due to. These are words that give you some idea that the things that you're doing are going to lead to the things that you need to have happen next, right? So you always have to remember therefore. It's one of my favorite words. And you'll talk to people about anything, and they're going on and on. This all sounds really good. And either they stop short and there's no therefore, or their therefore will be over there. And you're like, oh, I was right with you until that was your conclusion. But the conclusions are critical. We do all this stuff, but why? Because therefore we needed some outcome. And this is what the Merovingian was saying. And this is what the goal was saying. And I began to bake this into the things I was doing in my business in Japan. All right? So what I kind of discovered was wait a minute. I can look at it from my business out to the customers, or I can put myself in the customer's shoes and look back at a business and say, what's really going on here? Well, we need to find them, and they need to find us, right? Which begs the first question. Who are you? Do you have a name? Has anybody ever heard your name? That's one. Number two, maybe they heard your name. They have no idea what you offer. There's a company, and I'm not going to say its name, but it had a tagline. I used to see the trucks running around town. And the tagline said this: the system is the solution. I'll take 3. Yeah, sign me up. Like what? And they spent money to paint that on the side of that truck. Like real money to put it on advertisements. And I'm going, which system? Laundry service systems? Recycling system? I don't know. And the solution to what? Like what? Wasted time, money, and effort, right? So causal factor, it's oh, nobody knows what we do. It's well, I wonder why that is, right? So you think about who you are, what your name is. Have you ever told people just in the most simple words what you do? Have you done it? You go back and look at that. But I can promise you right there's your first step into cause and effect. It's oh, I should tell you that, I bake cakes. Well, do you? Yeah, that's what I sell for a living. It's well, maybe you should tell people that, right? Especially if you're an unknown. Now, if I'm BMW, do I really have to tell you we make cars? Probably not. We've gone to a different level of awareness. But first they have to find you. And once they find you, somebody has to do the work to convince them that this is a good solution for your needs. And once you do that, you can just celebrate and go back to sleep. No, I'm just kidding. Once you sell it to them, what should probably happen? This is where you can give me an input. You sold them your product or your service. What happens next? Therefore, what should happen next?
They need support.
They need support. Once you give them support, then what?
More support.
More support, yes. And more, and more, and more. And then finally, it works, right? Your service met their need. You want? We're asking a million times, survey, like, good, did that work? Are you happy? But that's why you're there. They didn't show up just, oh, I was excited to get out of bed this morning to give you money. I was motivated to just give you money. No, they got out of bed because they were motivated to solve a problem, to meet a need, to get something done, to grow, whatever. And you're there to help them. But that's at the end of this chain. And we look out at them. We got to find them. We need to sell it to them. We need to make sure it works. They look at us and say, we got to find you. We got to discover who you are. We need to buy it from you. And I've got to actually implement it and make it work. But they're the same journey. They're just viewed from either the business out or the customer in. And we're talking about now connecting those pieces together. So if you put this in a wheel, it kind of says the same thing. Look, there's people out there with needs. We call them prospects if they haven't bought anything yet. You are a company that offers something. They've got to find you. You've got to convert them from a prospect into a customer. You want them to be successful. And this is going to be critical in a minute. And they're going to influence people who don't know you yet, who have similar needs, people that they associate with. First of all, you look at that, does that make sense? That kind of journey, that's what a business needs to do. For me, the basics, like, yeah, that makes sense. All right, so once I figured this out with the help of the goal, here's my journey, I'm like, let's see what happens. I needed some words that I could remember. I need to find them. I need to sell it to them. I need to make sure it solves their problem. But finding started with an F. I needed an S. So I called it seek. I'll seek you out, right? So I had the 3 S's. So we're calling this the 3S process, right? Easy to remember. So that's good. So I can see how I need to find them, sell it to them, solve them. Here's sort of what the customers are doing on the outside. And then this is me waking up in the middle of the night, according to ChatGPT, just realizing when I was coming into my office every day, and in your business, either you have this or somebody's doing things like this across multiple functions, you're going to realize, wow, for some reason, I don't know exactly why, but I need to do some marketing. How come? Because everybody does marketing, right? I mean, you just sort of feel like, well, that's what businesses do. You jump in the water, you go like this. You jump into business, you do marketing. Like people do that. But why? Why do you need that? And I realized, wait a minute, I'm coming in every day, and I got this thing in the upper right-hand corner, which looks like a bunch of people. You know, like this room, here's a bunch of people. And I was looking at them like, oh, here's my branch, right? And I knew they had job titles, and I knew they were in departments. But what I wasn't doing is mapping it to the customer journey and realizing, oh, wait a minute, I have specialists to help customers find us, to identify who we are, to make that. I have a whole department like whose job is to do that, right? And they're called marketing, sales, and support. I'm like, this is interesting. Each one of those has a unique function. They're tailored to things that I need to have happen. And so I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and say marketing is going to help people find us and help us find them. They're going to have that role. Sales is going to say, well, now that we found you, I'm going to work to make sure that what I have meets your need and will solve your problem. And once we do that, I've got a whole group of people who are going to ensure that you're able to use it and make it work. Now that's with the product, and this could be with the service as well, right? Doesn't matter. But this all sort of made sense. But the magic of it was for me, it's like, wait a minute, I have people with those titles on polos that they wear into the office every day. I'm like, that's convenient, all right? So that's good. And so I'm like, all right, I understand now how my organization is tailored to the customer journey. That all works. And then I started saying, wait a minute, hey, marketing, what's your responsibility? What are you really here for? And they can say, well, to create awareness. You know, I need people to consider our stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's all good. But at the end of the day, how do I know if it's working? How do I know if marketing did what marketing needed to do in order to move a prospect from that stage into becoming a customer. Like, what did they have to deliver? And so then these funny words start popping up, like leads. Oh, we need leads. Oh, that's a good word. But then somebody says, yeah, what kind of leads? And how many leads? These questions start to come up, right? And so then I ask the next question, sales. What's your job to do? It's like to make money, to make quota. And that's true. I mean, look, if we don't make money, then it's hard to get to the next quarter and the next quarter. We need that. But that's not the end of the chain, and you know that. You sell them a service, and if it was a terrible experience, they're not coming back, right? And if they don't come back, your business can feel the loss. And if enough of that happens, then, well, you could fail in business. So sales has to make sure that the people they bring in are the right customers, that we promise them the right things, we set expectations. We close that deal, and we handed what I'd call a qualified customer into a support organization that doesn't have to reinvent services or products in order to make them successful, right? So support then has some good customers who are qualified and just need the basic help to succeed. And I began to realize, wow, this is good. There's actually an interaction between these departments. And I defined this, and everybody was happy. And I said, look, there they are. So our marketing side, you're going to give us leads, enough of them. And sales, you're going to sell things, enough of them. And support, you're going to make sure they work. And if this is all working, we'll get referrals out of this that can go and feed back into this cycle at any point. Right? Those are successes. So that made sense to me, and then I'm like, now I can go and instruct my teams on what their responsibilities are, and I can make this whole thing work. So I did that. I pulled them all in a room. I said, hey, sales, you're going to get leads from marketing. And hey, support, sales is going to give you great customers. This is going to be awesome with the basic problems to solve. And everybody's like, yeah, this is good. And so we all went about our business, and I was excited about it. I explained this all to them, and then the reality set in. We still weren't doing well. Like, I went to all of this, went through it all, and we still weren't. And so then I'm like, hey, sales, why are you not making enough sales? And what do you think they said? Anyone? Yes. The number one answer, the survey says, marketing didn't do its job. It didn't give me enough leads. The leads are terrible. And so, were you there? It was like precisely said, exactly. This is what they said, precisely. And I'm like, all right, thank you for that, sales. I'm going to go talk to marketing. Hey, marketing, they say your leads are terrible. Get in there and get better leads. And what do you think marketing said? He already knows. He knows. What do you think marketing said? Ooh, good thing I came. I'll tell you what they said. They're not following up on any of those leads. They don't call them. They're not looking into them. We do all this work, and they never even call them. So don't tell us. And you know what I said? Oh, it's a good point. I'll be back. I'll go talk to sales. And this dance continued, and I don't know, maybe a year. Like, I'm embarrassed to say, right? And I'm going back and forth, and I'm fighting over this. And finally, you have to actually get a little angry. You actually have to have had enough that this cannot be the answer. That our life is governed by sales blaming marketing and marketing blaming sales. And it's a law of physics, and it can never be fixed. Like, if you say that, well, then you give up. And then I began to realize, what could I do? What could I do to force sales to eat that food that marketing has given them and like it? And like it, right? Like, what could I do? So I got them in the room. I said, hey, guys, I've had enough. And one of several things are going to happen. And one of them you don't want to happen, so we'll put that as the last option. What I want to know, sales, is what marketing has to give you in order for you not to blame them for you not closing these sales. And they said, well, it's got to be this many leads. I'm like, all right, write down the number. They have to be qualified. We have to have checked to make sure that the number of channels was right, that they could program, that they had backgrounds in this types of measurement, all this stuff that we were asking. I'm like, okay, I wrote it all down. I got this list, and I said, okay, anything else? Oh yeah, and we kept writing. So finally, I'm like, okay, this is it. I turned to marketing, I said, you either go get this and deliver it, or I'll find somebody who will, right? You have to do this. But now they had clear goals. They had a number of them. They had a quality level of them. And we had a checklist that we could check. And they're like, oh, okay. And so you know what? They built a program that actually started delivering that. I'm like, oh, now the ball shifted. And I went back and said, hey, sales, I just came over to drop off the new leads to you. This number of them, this quality level, and guess what? They all got a raise. And you have to convert them now, because that was the agreement. That's what we said. So I handed them in to sales. And so then sales started working. And they would complain a little bit. We'd have some feedback, and we would go and we'd change that. But the point was, it wasn't marketing defining what the output was going to be. Because often when you go to a department, and they work hard, don't get me wrong, but you're saying, oh, how's it going? Oh, it's going really good. How's the output? Oh, it's great. How do you know? Because I'm really tired. I'm tired. I've worked really hard. I'm tired. I'm like, okay, yeah, you look tired. You've worked hard enough. Thank you. Right? That's how we know. It's like, yeah, well, no. We needed 1,100, and you gave us 900, and we got 200 to go. Now we know the score. What are you going to do? Show me a program that will deliver us 200 leads in 3 weeks. Show me that plan. Which was a whole lot different than like, oh, you look really tired. Good job. You can see the difference. Whether the number was perfect or not isn't the point. Whether the discussion was right was the point. Give me a program to give me these kinds of leads, qualified this way, in this number, in this time frame, which was a whole different discussion. And you know what? They went and did it. And I remember specific cases, right on the nose, like down to the lead they delivered in. I'm like, oh, hey, sales. I'm back, and here's marketing's latest delivery. So we would work these contracts between the departments. And so these inter-departmental contracts became the conversation between these two departmental leaders. This was important. Now, if you're a small company and you don't have all these things, it doesn't mean you don't need certain numbers of leads at certain quality levels, because you do. It's just that you may be both sales and marketing. You have that conversation with yourself. But it shows up on a sheet somewhere that says, here's the number, here's the quality that we need. Or, I don't have an opportunity to convince and sell. Like without these, I just don't have the field. And then I resort to terrible things like cold calls, people who don't want to talk to me, leaving messages on answering machines, and other various complete wastes of time, right? But this became the conversation. And so we were striking these, sales defining the number and the quality level, marketing defining from support. And we had agreements between departments, if that makes sense. And I say departments between functions, if you don't have departments, but between the functions, okay? So now we began to metric this. And somewhere along the line, a CRM expert shows up and says, hey, here's what I can track, And this is great. Here's the kind of things, number of opportunities, number of open sales, traffic, and these types of things. And we start now getting it from a concept to how do we actually begin to implement? And this gets deep. I mean, we've been working for a couple weeks on details of all this stuff, and also the parts of this. And later, we can always talk about details if you want. But your CRM group shows up and says, here's the kind of things that I can track, the information that I get. And sometimes we're like, oh yeah, can you track this, maybe another thing, right? And the answer to that's often yes. And then we say, okay, now that we know this is what we're trying to drive that lead us through our steps and functions in a department to deliver the big outputs like leads or orders or solutions down here. The real question is, so what are you going to do about it? Like, what can you do? You can't just go force the customer to write a check. Like, you don't have that kind of leverage. You can do things like the activities in these categories. Well, what's my problem? And this is another question. Some people don't like to ask the question this way. I like to ask the question, what's the problem? Where is the problem? What's the problem? And one of the things might be, well, you know, we're sort of new. People don't know who we are. And it's like, well, if people don't know who you are, what's the chance they're going to come to you and look for service? You have to have a way to increase your awareness to people. Like you have to. And there's a bunch of ways now, but it would be on your list. And once they are aware of you, what your name is, what your offering is, what category it falls in, and hopefully like why you do it better, you know, something like that, then they have to say, well, maybe that could work for me. And they begin to engage you and do comparison charts and that's consideration, right? And once you get that consideration, you need to say, wow, this is a person who's downloaded this, who's looked at this, who's asked for more information. I need to talk to that person. That's called qualification. And at the end of this, marketing's getting to the point where it's like, well, we got a live one. They're very interested. Could somebody please call this person, right? Could somebody go visit them? In other words, could somebody go and see if they're real and convince them that, or themselves, that we've got a good solution for their need? And that's called sales. That's what salespeople do. Here's what we have, convincing them that this is going to work, convincing themselves this will work. And then finally, that opens and closes opportunities. And now the person is sitting there where they bought the service. Now, in some cases, that's it. Congratulations. They bought the cookie and they ate it. It's like, well, good job, consumed it. Then the real question is, but did you like it? And the real question is, will you buy another one? Like, will you tell your friend to buy that cookie, right? This is what you want to know. So you want to get a sense of whether or not that sale, importantly, is going to lead to the next one, right? And this is where support comes in. Oh, I didn't like the cookie. Here, let me send you a different cookie. Here you go. Oh, I like that one. Okay. You're getting to a point where the customer is going to say, yes, this was great, and I'm going to tell my friends, and guess what? They're going to call me. And a referral or a testimonial, one of these things at the end of this cycle is free awareness, right? And it may be consideration work done as well. It might be qualification. They just might come in and you might get new sales. So this becomes a cycle. And the elements look like this. So I break them into these groups. You can simplify this. You don't have to have every one. But you see seek, sell, solve. This is marketing, sales, and support. And like I said, awareness it's critical. And I always challenge you, what's your name? Is it out there? Have you ever said it, in social media or online or on a large billboard on the A6? Have you done that? Is that the best place to do it? But if you do that, the second thing I'll say is, and have you spoken in plain language, especially if you're new to the market, what you are offering? We fall in love with the names that we create for our companies. I get that. I am the president of Revidyne. Yeah, I'm a sole proprietor. You're looking at the whole company right here. But I like the name. But did I ever tell you, we make models for engineering hands-on education? Well, I just did. But I try to polish those words a little bit so that anybody in your company they got to be able to say that. Here's who we are, and here's the 4 words that say what we do. You got to have that. You just need to have that level of clarity, especially when you're starting out, or you will get lost in the noise. So that's who you are. And then all the other elements and pieces fall in here, right? So in any of these areas, like awareness or engagement or enablement under solutions or support, you can have things that you do to try to drive awareness, to try to create consideration, to try to create enablement of a customer. They're all steps along the customer journey that you're actually building a company to perform. Like, you have departments, and there are standard names. But what I'm really trying to tell you is all of those departments and all of those functions and all of those job titles fall in this chain of cause and effect. Moving a prospect from awareness into sales where they're considering and buying, into support where they're succeeding, and critically important, into advocacy and endorsement and your net promoter that comes back in and fuels your business. So you're actively trying to move the next ones through, and they're adding to that by bringing their friends and their colleagues in as well. And that's what begins to really move. We call it a turbocharger in an engine, right? It's adding extra fuel and pressure into the system to drive things through. Okay? So I call it an activity package. And an activity package would be the things that you can do in any one of those steps, whether it's awareness or consideration or qualification. So what are the things? Well, you have a goal. You'll have the activities that you can do in awareness in this case. You'll have metrics that you'll use to measure it. And like, how would you measure awareness? Like, how would you know? Well, the easiest one was web traffic. Is anybody coming to the website? Like, it's just a metric you get now. Back in the day, we had to go to a survey, which would be fine. Go pay somebody thousands of dollars for a survey and see where you are. That's still valid, right? But on your webpage, if you have one out there, look at your traffic. And if you had a really small number, what would I recommend? Do some activities that increase traffic to your website. Is that rocket science? It's like, no, like this is simple in that case. And what are the things that you could do? And you start listing those things out. And we talk about social media. It could be posts on Reddit. It could be things on any of the digital advertising. And you would choose how to measure it. And then, so for example, if you took awareness as one of the things that we said we had to do, it's like, what would an awareness activity package look like? Like what? And you would select things. And I'm not here to tell you what they are. It depends on your stage of awareness. It depends on the skills you have in your company right now. Like, well, it's like, I don't have an advertiser. It's like, well, probably not going to run that this month. If you just don't have the resources. But you take what's available to you, you start making consideration, but importantly, you set some sort of goal as to what you wanted to get out of that awareness activity, right? So I wouldn't just have said, well, it's nice that you identified I need awareness. That's good. And then my next question is, how are you going to know if you got it? Oh, well, I'm tired. It's like, okay, good job. That's what we always do. I'm exhausted. Look at me run. I'm just so tired. It's like, yeah, I know. But we were going to measure awareness by the number of people hitting our webpage. Are we or not? Like, did we hit it or not? Yeah, we hit it. Good job. Yes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to consideration, right? We can look at that. My point is that you'll recognize you need to do things. You want to assign some kind of goal to it so you can compare. Now the first goal you set, we talk about baseline. It's like, I have no idea. Well, pick a number then. How are you doing right now? You wanted to grow your business by 30%? Go for a 30% increase in awareness. Take your web traffic and multiply it by 1.3. It's just a shot, but it's an important first step. And what you might say is, well, I did this and I got 20% increase. I'm like, okay, well, it's better than zero, right? And maybe that's setting the tempo for you to compare against. But unless you start doing those comparisons, it goes back to the I'm exhausted measure. And so everybody's good. You want to set goals for those steps, right? And so inside all of these, it could be in the sell phase, and maybe it's in the, this should say engagement up there. But you'd have an activity package, and then inside the solutioning, when you're onboarding, you say, oh, how many new customers are calling in with problems? How long is it taking us to solve them? And I always ask this question, especially if you have a product. Is it running? Is it successful? Or did they tell you, yes, it's going to run. I'm certain of it. You want to know the answer to that question. And so it's like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, here's how you know. Oh, thanks for calling. I'm glad I could answer that question for you. Is it running? Like, ask that question. Just ask it. And you know what? Every time you do a support call, ask the question. And if you do 10, 15, 20 of them, look at the percentage that said, yep, it's running, or I know it's going to run, we're good. Versus, nah, I'm just not there yet, right? And you just tracking an index. And who knows what your number will be. If 80% is successful, maybe that's your number. If it's 20, maybe that's your number. If you want to improve it, now you know what to compare to. But if you never ask them the question, is it working? Are we good? Especially if they're new, then how are you going to know? And I'll tell you this, the Devasoft stuff I love, because people come to Devasoft and they're so well built, it's specific what they're doing, and almost all the time it's working, right? And you ask that question and you believe in it. But you have to have part of your culture that you weren't just here to make money. I'm sure that's not the whole reason people are in this room. But I do know companies like that. It's like, look, now we'll lose profit on it. Let that customer fail. And they won't say it, but that's exactly what the actions are. Instead, it's like, look, they came, they hired us, they bought our products, they bought our service. And I always looked at it this way. If it fails, and we had a kind of a complex product line. You had to program this thing. Alan Turing, it was just his birthday last week. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Alan Turing, right? We had a Turing complete programming approach. And I'd look at the customer like, oh, do you know what a for loop is? Do you know what a while statement? Have you ever seen a state machine? Like, no. I'm like, oh, this is going to be some work. And I'd look at him and like, man, I'm worried you could fail at this. How's that for a sales pitch? I'm worried you could fail. Authenticity, like I was worried. This needs to work, right? And in fact, I don't want to sell it to you if we can't find a solution path. So at the end, they came because they needed a solution. And I sort of felt my job as a salesperson was a steward, the gatekeeper of whether or not this is going to work for you or not, right? One of the two. But at the end, what you get out of that is a person who is your advocate. They're going to recommend you to their friends and their customers, and they become new prospects and new customers for you. Okay, so I'm wrapping up now. I think we're right on time. What I'm trying to tell you is the business is a process. And we've gone through the steps: awareness, consideration, qualification, the engagement, the convincing, the selling, the onboarding, the enablement, and in the end, solutioning. And hopefully an advocate comes out of that. You can simplify that if you want, but those are the kinds of progressions that people make. And if it turns out that for some reason you don't have enough salespeople, like whatever reason, you just don't have enough salespeople, you had turnover, and you're like, wow, sales are down. It's like, yeah, So what would you do? You know what some organizations would do? Let's increase leads. Let's just go tell more people they need to buy our stuff. And you're like, but wait, that's not the problem. The problem is I don't have enough salespeople. Yeah, so go take out more ads. Marketers are going to market. And when there's a problem, everything looks like an advertising or search engine optimization opportunity, right? But as leaders of companies, you need to look across those departments and say, we don't have a problem with number of people to our website. That is not the problem. Our problem is we don't have enough sales resources right now. And if you put all your money on the marketing side, or you hire a whole bunch of support people, but you don't have enough resources to do the sales, then you have ignored the constraint. And the constraint would be somewhere in the middle. If you pinch this down, if this is a water hose and you pinch it down, the water will ultimately stop flowing through the entire hose. And that's your business. That water flow are the opportunities flowing through your pipeline. And any one of those, if you pinch down marketing, no leads are coming in, no one knows who we are. We're not getting any inquiries. Sales will probably drop off too. It might take a little time, but that will constrict. And then finally, support doesn't have anybody they have to support, right? It's a process, and all of these things connect. Magically, marketing leads to sales, sales leads to support, support leads to advocacy, which turbocharges the whole thing. And that's what I discovered in Japan. And so, like I said, if you got all kinds of input from marketing and you don't have enough sales, you'll see it flow through to the end and then ultimately back to the beginning. But what you're really looking for as business leaders is to optimize the throughput in any one of those functions. You've got just enough leads coming in. You've got just enough people to cover them, and you've got just enough support to do the support. That's really, you're always looking to balance that out, right? And so this is sort of the leadership level. If you're lucky enough to have a head of marketing, sales, and support, you get them all in a room, and you say, hey, look, let's look at this balance. We're getting enough input from marketing. We're handling enough of sales. Man, we're just not keeping up on the support side. Well, put your resources for that pay period into increasing your support. Okay, and so this was the pipeline, right? If you took a look at all the measures that you'd have along it, you're trying to take those prospects and move them through to successful customers. And you understand that that process is working in your everyday business, whether you know it or not. And I didn't know it. This just took me years to finally come to the realization that all that infrastructure was set up, and my first approach was just do more software demos. It's like, it was so naive. But at the end, I realized, I can tell marketing's performing. I can tell sales is performing. I can tell I don't have enough resources over here. And I got my departmental managers, those functional managers, to work together to always be balancing and tuning our larger element called the business, the whole thing. And everybody on your executive staff, whether you're the only executive or you have a couple people or whatever, has that responsibility to look out for the throughput of the entire business, even if it means a lower budget on this end in order to optimize the maximum throughput. Okay? So that was the leadership team. I'm probably not going to spend a bunch of time other than this was where I get my leaders in a room. Every 2 weeks, one day out of the week, we'd hold an entire office day in a conference room. And if their employees wanted to come in and talk to them, they could come in. But I just knew we needed to have conversation. I used to say across the departments. And I'd force those leaders to be on top of their departments and not only just dealing with the things within their departments, right? They had a dual responsibility. So we would do little things like that. So in the end, it's a process, right? The seek, sell, solve leads to orders, to solutions. And what comes out of that are advocacies, testimonials, customer solutions, referrals. And my guess is that you love what you do so much. It's that thing in the middle that really is the satisfaction. All of these other things really stem on whether or not you get those referrals. So I'm going to go ahead and end right here. We'll take any questions, but thanks for walking through the steps with me on this journey of how we got here in this thing called the business process.